Ultron, this is the video review for the Transformers 1 Takara Commander Optimus Prime. And here's a size comparison, so you can see he really isn't going to scale with anything because he's way out of the Studio Series scale. And he looks pretty good next to the Beast Awaken Optimus Primal. And here's a look at the box, and you can see he's really actually kind of, this is like a really old-fashioned kind of looking box, or maybe like Takara exclusive kind of box where you just see a lot of the actual toy. You don't get a lot of artwork, and then you get like one of the videos or the movie stills, and then you get all the different play features, which he doesn't actually have that many, and then you get some more CGI models. He does have his instructions, and they are like really big, I guess because the pictures are so huge, and it is on a nice glossy paper, so that's something. And here's a 360 look at him, and I think it is a good Optimus Prime design. It is fresh, because I do get tired of seeing the same Optimus Prime over and over again. He does have like this backpack in the back, which is not too bad. It kind of suits him. It kind of fits the frame. But that's like the only kibble you're really going to find on this guy. So that's nice that they did concentrate it all in one area. So that's not too bad. The thing that really bothers me with this figure though, and these new designs, is just how tiny their torsos are compared to how long their legs are. It's really off-putting to me. And this is a thing Transformers have been doing more and more, is they've just been shrinking the torsos shorter and shorter and shorter just to make the legs longer and longer. And I think at this point, they've gone too far. This is too much. And it's a thing I just don't like about the Transformers designs, is they're just crushing their torsos too much. And then we get a good look at his head sculpt here, and this is actually going to be another point of contention for me. I think there's too much of his forehead showing inside his mask, and his eyes are kind of small and beady. They kind of just don't work. Like his helmet is too big compared to how tiny his eyes are. And if you look at like the Studio Series figure, I think they handle the proportions much better. Whereas this helmet looks like really blocky and awkward. This helmet's like nicely rounded, looks like part of his head. It looks like it's all nicely integrated. It's very dynamic looking. Whereas this one just looks boxy. It just doesn't really fulfill the look of the guy. It doesn't look correct. Whereas this one looks like better. But let's look at the box art. I didn't see the movie, so maybe I'm wrong. So maybe this is like a better representation, but no, I don't. It just doesn't quite work. Yeah, you can see there's just some awkwardness. It doesn't quite fit the design they were going for. Yeah, it doesn't work for me. I don't like it. And then I have the same issue with the Beast Awakens Optimus Primal. Like, his head is also very incorrect. Like, this does not look right compared to the Studio Series figures, which just has such a gorgeous head sculpt. He looks like a Batman for sure. Whereas this one just looks like he's got a huge faceplate. It just looks super awkward. And it might be because of the face change gimmick in both these figures, but there's really no excuse to be this far off. Like, this looks amazing. This is a tremendous head sculpt. And this head sculpt looks terrible. I would love for an upgrade kit to just replace this head. It's very ugly. Same for this guy. Please have a third-party upgrade to replace this head. But he does have his face change gimmick, and that might be partly why the head looks the way it does. And it's this one, because his face is so small, it's actually kind of annoying to switch it around. That actually wasn't too bad. Oh, I didn't quite get it in the right spot. There we go. And then we get, I think this is maybe a good faithful rendition of his CGI model. It doesn't look too bad. So this looks better. The eyes are a little bit closer to the brow of his helmet, which I think helps. And I think the eyes are a little bit bigger to make him look more innocent. But these eyes actually look better. It looks like his helmet was actually made for this mode more than it was made for his battle mask. Because that face actually looks pretty decent when you compare it to this face. It just doesn't look quite right. It's just like everything's just a little bit off and it just throws the whole thing off. To me, anyway. We'll go over his accessories. So he's got this cool axe. So it doesn't have any hollow parts. They did mold both sides of it. It is made of 2 pieces of plastic, which is pretty cool. It does have this. I don't know if you're supposed to be able to rotate this. You don't really need to because his hand rotates. Oh yeah, and we'll get to that in a second too. But yeah, his hand will rotate, so you don't really need the shaft of the axe to rotate. But yeah, it's very pretty. And we can compare that to the Studio Series since I have that out. And it's actually not much bigger, even though he dwarfs the Studio Series figure. I feel like this axe could have been a little bit bigger, but it's good. It's proportional enough. And then the other accessory he's got, which is pretty cool, is you can open up his chest. Just open that up and you get a very large matrix of leadership. That is very difficult to dislodge from his chest with human fingers. Yep, can't do it. But yeah, great looking matrix, nice and sparkly, very pretty. It's got, I don't know, a peg on the back so you can peg it in. But yeah, it's really good, and it's cool that he can actually hold it in his hands. So that's a nice touch. I do like that. He can actually grip it because of his finger joints. So that's pretty cool. It's a nice little extra. I think it's well worth it. And then I really like how his matrix chamber opens up differently than all the other Optimus Primes. So that's very cool. I like that touch. But yeah, you saw his arm fall off. So let's talk about the quality of this guy. And this is where I paid about 80 bucks for this guy on Amazon Japan, and he's just kind of not worth it. He feels cheap in a lot of different ways. He's made of like Studio Series building materials, which works on these small scale figures. It's totally fine for these guys, but not for a guy that's twice as big. This has some really bad QC issues. So yeah, he's got like for a figure this big, you should never see mushroom pegs. That's not acceptable on something this big. And then yeah, this arm just loves to spiral off. I don't know why. It's catching on something and then it just loves to just come off. So you can hear it clicking. It's not supposed to be clicking on anything. So that's annoying. This arm is fine. And then he's got these pinned joints in the hips, which are not a good choice for a figure this big. These will eventually like become very loose, but right now it's okay. He's good out of box. He doesn't feel too cheap. He does have, I'm guessing these are friction ratchets and not spring ratchets. So he's got some ratchets in the hips. Can't complain about that. This figure is pretty light. And then he does have a ridiculous high kick. This figure is pretty light, so having like friction ratchets is not that big a deal. He does not have like any ratcheting in the knees. It's just friction. No ratchets here, no ratchets here. The hips are the only ratchets in this whole thing. And then he's got this going on. So he's got like a universal joint for his ankle, so you can get good poses out of that. And then he's got his swivel, which is of course going to be on a mushroom peg. And then he's got these, which are screwed in place at least. That helps a little bit. And then he's got like the worst joint ever in a figure this size is just, he's got this hinge that's a pin. So this is a terrible joint. And you probably, if you've seen reviews of this guy, you know that if his arm's up, he cannot even hold his axe because of this terrible hinge joint. Like, why would you ever do it that way? It's just really bad. Like, they wouldn't even do that on this figure. Like, why would... Well, I guess they would, but it's better. I don't know. It's just better. It makes more sense the way they did on this figure. On the Studio Series figure. He does have like his 90 degrees in the elbows. Those are also screwed in place, so that helps a little bit. And then he's got rotation in the wrist. And those are probably going to be mushroom pegs too, but you can see it's a little bit hidden at least. And then he's got like this transformation joint, which lets his arm go like this if you wanted to for some reason. And then he's got a ball joint neck, which could probably be pretty easy to pop off. Yeah, if you just raise up the head, you can see the whole exposed ball joint. So this would be easy to pop off and just get a new head sculpt going. So I hope that happens. Yeah, so the build quality of this guy is it's kind of terrible, actually. It's really not acceptable for a figure this size and this price. Like, this guy feels good. He feels like a toy. He's heavy. He's solid. He doesn't have any hollow pieces except for down here. All of his hollowness is hidden, which I guess is true for this guy too. I can't fault him for that. But this guy feels good. The plastic quality feels better, even though he is also missing ratchets everywhere. I don't know. The plastic on this guy just feels more hollow. It's a cheaper kind of plastic. It's like that kid's toy kind of plastic. Kind of, I guess it's Studio Series plastic, which you just don't expect in a figure that's this big. Or if you do, like in a commander class like Jetfire, it's just handled better, and he's full of ratchets, which help detract from how cheap he feels. This guy he just feels cheap. And then he's got like this spring-loaded gimmick in his shoulder, which you can constantly activate by accident just by like pulling his shoulder. It'll just open up. It's not supposed to do that. It's supposed to be activated by this button back here. That's what's supposed to activate it. But yeah, when you're just like posing him, you'll likely just pull this apart by accident. It's very easy to trigger. And it's, I don't know, it's not even that great a gimmick, to be honest. But yeah, so I got a lot of complaints for this guy, and if he was maybe $60, it would be acceptable for his QC to be kind of this cheap. Maybe 70, I don't know. He feels decent, but he doesn't feel as good as a leader class figure, which I showed a size comparison. He is actually the size of a leader class figure, but somehow this guy feels a little bit more solid. Maybe it's the rubber parts, I don't know. Actually, this guy doesn't have any rubber, so I don't know. This guy just clicks together better. This guy just has too many QC issues. So it's hard to recommend him. And then his proportions are really out of whack too, if you compare it with the Studio Series figure, which I think has almost perfect proportions. He's still got that issue that I said of his torso being like kind of short. I did take off his diaper, so maybe that's why he looks a little bit better, but his torso is still a little stumpy, and so is this guy's. But this guy's worse because of his ugly shoulders. This guy, since he doesn't have that action gimmick, his shoulders are better integrated. And I think it would be cool if a third-party company also made like a torso extender right here. You could just peg that right in there. It probably won't even affect the transformation to have an extra bit of plastic right there. And then he can just peg in like this. And I think this actually, his proportions look better like this, but maybe I'm crazy. I do make my figures too long sometimes. But I think this actually is a better proportion than having him squished down like this. I think that's wrong. Like, his chest is his torso, and it should not be like that. There should be some abs in there. Like right there would be great. Maybe even a little bit shorter. I think that would be a great look for him. Anyway, that's enough about that. Let's go ahead and transform this guy. We're just going to fold his fists down. We're going to unpeg. Well, his backpack is pegged on by these friction tabs, which is also not a great thing. These are barely... These hold on, but I do worry they'll get weaker. And then we can just rotate his whole backpack section. A lot of his transformation is his backpack. We're going to lower this bumper. We're going to, actually let me rotate that back. We're going to have to flip out these tabs and hyperextend them. And then we're going to just open this whole section. This guy is a little, and then this bumper. This guy is a little shell former-ish. You can see like this is the whole cab of the truck is his backpack. So it's kind of well done though, so I'm not super angry about it. But yeah, and then you're going to point his toes, of course, like you always do. And then you're going to pull out these panels, and then you pull out these gray panels inside his thighs or his calves. And then you're going to unclick his knees, and then these are going to collapse all the way down. And then you do the same thing for the other side. You're just going to pull that out there, pull out his trailer hitch, and then just unpeg that, collapse this whole thing down. And then his legs will sandwich together in an interesting kind of way. So that's going to become his trailer hitch. This is going to slide over this panel and then click together there. So this all pegs together pretty nicely. And there you go. That's the whole rear of his truck already done. So his legs are pretty easy. And then you're just going to telescope out or accordion out all this jointage here, and then make sure the wheels are pointed down so you have it this way. So you got the rear of the truck, you got the front of the truck, and then you're going to pull out his arms, and then his head can now fold backward into this cavity. And then you're going to point these sections this way, and then you have to do a little extra step where you bend his arms backwards, and they're going to hide. Oops, I did. Oh, great. I bent them the correct way. His elbows bend both directions, so you bend them backwards, and they're going to hide back here like you can see, and then his elbow is going to peg into his leg joint right there. So this will all tidy up right there. So it's going to look nice and neat like this when you have it all done. And then one thing you do have to be mindful of is these dark gray tabs have to peg into these slots right here. So before you peg everything in place, you want to make sure that those go where they need to go right there. So those lined up nicely, and now you can start pegging everything together. And then the two forearms pegged together. It's a little unnecessary, but it's there. That's nice. And then you just bring this whole section over his chest. So also that's probably going to be a point of contention, is that his chest is a faux chest. But I think his truck looks better with his faux, or his actual cab. And then you're going to finally tab these here. So he could be a little bit fiddly. He's got a bunch of like extra little bits that the Beast Awakens Optimus Primal didn't have. So he could be a little annoying to transform. It's a little less fun because of all the little extra tabs and things you need to make sure are in the right spots. And then he still has his gimmick. You can see he's got his buttons right there, so you can. Okay, I don't know why that's facing so far down. This one didn't catch in the correct place because I don't know why. There we go. Nope. Okay, well anyway, so he's got like that battle mode, I guess. So that's something else you can do. But yeah, I think overall it's a good looking vehicle mode. It is a shame it had to cheat on the chest. It would have been nice if it was a little bit more simplified. It'd be more fun to transform it. And then his back, the back of the truck looks terrible. Like, this is so fat. This should have collapsed more than it currently collapses. I don't know why they didn't make it just so that the two legs were touching each other. It just doesn't really look right. But I guess its proportions overall look okay. It's just this part back here is a little too fat. So yeah, it's a good looking truck. I don't know. And then you could just peg this on wherever. There's like a port there, a port here, wherever you want to put his axe for storage. I don't know if I would recommend this guy for 80 bucks or even 90 bucks if you're buying him by himself without combined shipping. It's probably closer to what you'd pay. I don't think he's really worth it, to be honest, but I'll include the link in the description, and then I'll include the link to my other sales. So please support the channel and buy what you can, and I'll see you in the next one.